The world is a pretty frightening place right now due to all the concerns over COVID-19. I'm pretty safe from it down here in the basement. Unfortunately, doctors who must tend to victims of the virus are especially vulnerable. One of the means they use to protect themselves are PAPR units, or powered air purifying respirators, like the 3M Breathe Easy units. It's relatively easy for hospitals and first responders to get their hands on the blower and hood components of the system, both new and used. Go look at eBay listings. You can get used systems all day long, but they don't have working batteries. The problem lies in powering these systems once you have one. They came with a nickel-cadmium rechargeable battery pack, or a nickel-metal hydride rechargeable battery pack, both of which are over $100 if you can even find one, or a lithium manganese dioxide primary battery, which by itself is over $400. Right now, a friend of a coworker is a doctor in Detroit, and they have a battery shortage. So I've come up with a solution. We're going to power this from USB. Large capacity power banks are so readily available, inexpensive, and capable. A quote-unquote 10,000 milliamp hour bank can run one of these respirators for 8 to 10 hours easily. I reverse engineered a mate for the 3M male connector on the blower unit, and a friend 3D printed it up for me. The CAD files for making one yourself are in a link down in the description. Here's where I don't want to get into trouble. What we are about to make is not intrinsically safe or suitable for use in a flammable atmosphere or underwater or any of that. This is suitable for a normal healthcare environment only, use at your own risk, I have no liability, yada yada yada. The connector comes in two pieces, a shell and an insert. All you'll need to provide is a USB cable, some 18 gauge solid wire, a little bit of heat shrink, solder, and hot melt glue. Assembly is easy. We're using the solid wire to form an electrical contact by wrapping it around and through the back of the insert. Use something to put neat and tight bends in the wire so it goes into the connector as easily as possible. And then insert the ends and bend the side over. The link in the description should take you to a version controlled file in Google Drive, which I've made some changes to hopefully make this a little bit easier to deal with, because this is kind of a pain. This is a little bit fiddly of a procedure, and it's, I don't know, it could be better, but okay, that's done. We don't need to stuff pin 3 because it doesn't seem to be connected in either the battery pack or the blower unit. Just a note, if you have some other kind of 3M PAPR unit, maybe one that uses a 12-volt lithium-ion battery pack, this should still work with the USB, because as far as I can tell, in the unit I was able to inspect, there are no electronics at all. The motor, which is made by Faulhaber in Germany, seems to be rated between 3 and 24 volts, so it's going to be pretty tolerant of different voltages. Next step is going to be to take your USB lead and sacrifice the end of that. Strip it back fairly far, like farther than you think you're going to need to strip it back. We're left with 4 wires on the inside, and some little bits of shield down here at the bottom. That's what the little piece of heat shrink is for, is to make sure that that shield doesn't cause a problem later. We're going to put our shell part of our connector over the cable. Put our piece of heat shrink on there also. And this is probably the most difficult part of this whole assembly, is we take the two data wires, which I'm pretty sure are white and green, feed them through the hole in the center of the back of the connector, pull that as far inside as you can get it, and then tie a knot in those two wires, trying to keep the knot as close to the bottom of the connector as possible. So you got an overhand knot there. Cut off the excess and then pull that down inside, so we've got a strain relief from that. Then we're going to take our black and red wires, trim those down some, and strip back the ends. Your USB cables are going to vary pretty widely in the wire gauge of the conductors that they use. The ones that I made that got sent to Detroit, those had 24 gauge power conductors, but these appear to have 26 gauge conductors, which is pretty small. That's why we can't use this wire directly as the contact. It's just too small. Now on the shell of the version 1.1 connector has plus and minus markings, and since it's keyed, that's where it goes. Oh, yes. My hands are very much too big for this. So it goes towards the center a little bit. If you get this backwards in terms of power and ground, or if your cable is actually wired backwards so that black is red and red is black, that shouldn't actually affect anything. At least the unit that I was able to test this on, the motor in the blower spin the same direction regardless of input polarity. So you're going to put your heat shrink down over the ugliness of the shield connection there, and then we're going to shrink that. Now at this point, if you have your Breathe Easy unit around, plug it in and make sure everything works okay. If it does, we're going to press the insert into the housing and drive it all the way into the little stops that you can see in the back of the insert. You can't see that. This is convenient. So there's little stops in there in the back of the insert. There's 3 of them. So we're going to drive that in until it's against those stops. And it may take some force to get that to be all the way in there. Okay, now that's fully assembled. The cable's a little wobbly in here, which is why I've left provision for you to fill it with hot melt glue through this hole. Okay. Give that a little wiggle and make sure the cable is fully in it, and then let that cool, and you should be good to go. Thank you very much for watching this. The whole social media thing is kind of foreign to me, so I'd like to ask you to please take the time to share this video and the link to the CAD files below with anybody that you think might be able to benefit from it. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a happy and healthy day.